Hello, everyone.
Here we
Welcome
are.
to Pen to Paper. I'm Leah, and I'm the host of Pen to Paper. And today we have Celine here with us. Thank you so much for coming on, Celine. I apologize to everyone for whoever is waiting on us. It's my fault. We said 7:30, and for some crazy reason in my head it was 8 because the last interview I did was 8 o'clock, and so my brain was just stuck there. So thank you all for being patient and waiting with us. So Celine, you are the author of The Next Right Thing, and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got actually. Yeah, you can tell us what your book is about and then how you started into writing. Like, how did you begin that?
Of course. Well, first off, Leah, thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm so excited. It's so fun to be here and to chat with you once again. For myself first. So, in all honesty, I think myself as much as everyone else, once the pandemic started, I wasn't sure what to really put my time and my energy into. I really wanted something that would, not focus so much on the news and just give me a good excuse to turn my mind off of that. And what not many people know is that since I was 16 years old, I wanted to be a writer. It was my absolute dream of what I wanted to do. It's what I wanted to do with my life. And unfortunately, when I was 16 and an impressionable teenager, when I told one of my teachers in high school that I wanted to be a writer, I was completely discouraged. I was told it was a bad career move, that it was very competitive, and that basically very few people make it. So I was more encouraged to go towards a more stable career route. Now, I did go to university. I got a Bachelor of Honors in Law and Justice with a minor in psychology and a master's in criminology, which I'm very proud of. And it was a lot of fun to study in those fields as well. But I will not be a police officer at any point in my life. I can barely run 5K to save my own life, let alone anybody else's. So I'm there for moral support only.
I'm sure they appreciate your moral support.
Of course. But when the pandemic finally happened and I was able to just kind of sit down and think about what I was going to do with my time, one of my very old and very dear friends reached out and was like, "Why don't you finally finish that book that you started in high school?" Because she remembered, because she really wanted to read that story. And
Mm.
that story has significantly changed from the characters and the title and the storyline that it was when I was 16 years old. But there I was, believe this was actually the day before my 26th birthday, that I sat down in my living room and I wrote out the first 6 chapters. And I
Wow.
knew that if I didn't finish it this time, I was never going to finish it ever in my life. And that was April 2020. And by August 2020, I had a manuscript.
That is incredible. What an incredible story of kind of second chance for yourself. You didn't give up on that dream and you just went back to that. And okay, and that friend was instrumental in bringing you back to. Isn't that funny how sometimes, we're not able to push ourselves in the direction that we need to go in, but, someone who understands us maybe better than we understand ourselves is able to do that. So
Absolutely.
tell us
And
about. Oh, go ahead.
no, no, of course, I agree completely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Tell us about the book, The Next Right Thing. What is it about?
The Next Right Thing, it's a moral crime thriller that's based in Ottawa. So anyone that reads the book will really know it's kind of more of the essence of the downtown core than just like the standard of the street names and storefronts. You'll really get that sense of the environment of really of being in that downtown core. Because when I first moved to Ottawa, I was so inspired by it, and I knew that
Mm.
this had to take place there. It was kind of like an homage to like my new home and this new chapter of my life, but also to kind of blend these two parts of my life together with the old and the new.
Yeah.
And the Next Right Thing really asks that question: how far would you go to do the right thing? And you have the main character, Rena Moretti, who, for her, as well as the another character in the story, his name's Will, I feel that they've really grown up with me over the years since I was 16 years old, because they lived in my imagination since that time. Even though
Wow.
the original story I had set aside and hadn't spoken to anybody about for years, I carried them with me as I grew up, as I became more independent, as I, went through my life courses, and I learned so much about myself and about people around me, and learned so many valuable life lessons. So when it came time to revisit this story, I knew that these characters had to grow up too. They were going to have to kind of meet me where I was at that point. And so many people that know me well, when they read this story, they would see Rena and kind of see a mirroring of my own personality. So I'm sure that kind of blended, but it wasn't so much because I put myself in her shoes, but because she grew up with me. It was
Mm,
like this a very close imaginary friend that I was finally sharing with the world. And for the story itself, again, it changed since the original concept, but you have this one character whose life is as perfect as can be as it seems.
okay.
And an unexpected accident completely throws her life off course. Everyone's expecting Rena to just go back to her life as it was. There's no need to upend everything, but she can't let it go. There's
Mm,
those moments in your life when you know that there's either a story, a concept that is just pulling your attention in that direction, and you just have to chase it. Some
yeah.
people don't, some people do, but Rena definitely does. And she learns so much along the way, whether it's a good choice or even a bad one, because
Mm.
there's definitely a lot of people that would have preferred if she didn't meddle so much.
Isn't that right? I think it's such an interesting concept that, well, actually, first of all, can you show us the book? I see it right behind you. You want to like
Absolutely.
prop it up in front of
My
you?
little like a shrine here.
Why
Very
not? It's
close
your book. You
up.
should be really proud of it. That's
Thank you
amazing.
so much. And fun fact, I actually designed the cover for this as well.
Yeah, like it, you know what? When I'm looking at it, I'm like, has that Ottawa vibe feel. So
Hmm.
now you do photography, right? Is this your photograph?
Yes, it is. And fun
There you
fact, it was
go.
actually taken with my iPhone, so I was not in any way, shape, or form a professional photographer. But I guess in terms of my family, I'm kind of the photographer of the family. I now have a more professional camera, so I look more like I know what I'm doing. But for every single one of my books, I have done the cover for it. It's kind of a way for me to really expand that creativity, because I'll see an image that I know it fits perfectly with the story, but
Yeah,
I don't want to use a stock image. I want to use something that's true to myself and also to the story. So
yeah.
I somehow rope in my family and my loved ones into an impromptu photo shoot, where even for the Cage Curse series, I dragged my very lovely cousin into the woods for an impromptu photo shoot, which she was very much willing to do, and she has so much fun with it. We even talk about it to this day.
Oh, that's so much fun.
Yeah,
That's such a neat idea because, well, first of all, iPhones are an amazing camera.
they really are,
You
honestly.
can't underestimate them.
I mean, it
I
took this shot, so like
I
props to that.
know. It's very, very good. So what a testament to your other creative side. That's amazing. I have to read your book now because I grew up in Montreal. So I've always thought like Montreal is this very vibrant city. And then I go to Ottawa and I get this feeling of like it's very clean and it's kind of cookie cutter and there's not much going on. But maybe I need to read your book in order for my mind to change. Like I do love the Parliament buildings, of course. They're old. I'm all about history, but other than that, like I haven't really gotten to understand Ottawa's vibe and like what it really has to offer. So now I think I really need to read your book for that.
Absolutely. I highly recommend it. I mean, I think it's great, but you know what? And
For sure.
if anything, when it comes to Rena's story as well, because again, was almost like a love letter to Ottawa, as when it comes to the environment, when it comes to just the atmosphere of the city itself, but also many times when I've been walking down in the downtown core, and just you have this sense that there's so much more, there's so many more layers to what's happening around you.
Mhm.
There's so many other stories and different lives. And when you look up at the apartment buildings of the skyscrapers, you wonder to the stories, the people that are in those buildings and what they're going through. Did
That's
they
right.
go through something that completely changed the course of their life that morning? You don't know, but what if?
Yes. Here, Maya, you're bang on, I'm sure. There's a lot of cool history in Ottawa, less boring than it seems.
Yes, I agree.
I'm sure you guys will prove me wrong. Well, I guess because I'm doing more events in Ottawa too, I'm able to, I'm starting to peel back those layers for sure. So I definitely have to read your book to find out more. So down to the idea, what idea or what maybe a personal experience sparked Rena's story? Because you said you've had it since you were 16. That's a long
Yes.
time to carry it. And as you said, everything kind of changed and grew up with you. But what was that initial that just started
It's
the idea?
funny you asked that, because when I first signed up to do this live with you, I was thinking, kind of really going back all those years, like, what was that? What was initially the switch that was flipped, essentially?
Yeah.
And I remember, I was always a very very mature kid. I was very kind of like more kind of, I wouldn't say like wise for my years, but I wasn't necessarily like getting in trouble like most of my classmates. I was kind of more reserved, I guess you'd say. Um, and when I was, I think, in about grade 6 or 7, my mom, who was working at the local high school, she
Mhm.
was reading this particular book with her students, and she thought that I would really enjoy it. It was called The First Stone by Don Acker. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. If not, my sincere
Okay.
apologies to the author, but it's a fantastic story, and it really blends in this kind of perspective that I never really got from a different book up to that point in my life, where you have this main character that's kind of gritty, that's kind of, rough around the edges, and you kind of wonder like, oh well, they're going nowhere fast, essentially. You're not really expecting much from a character like that. And then as the course of the book carries on, you kind of see these different layers of their personality and how that changes over time. And you see more of like kind of like a softness to them that's never really coming out, because they've been maybe raised up in an environment that, I don't know if I'm explaining it to do it justice as much,
Yeah.
but a story that really stuck with me about wondering that, not every story has a very clear hero or a very clear villain. So it made
Mm.
me kind of delve into that. Like, what if we have a story like that? What if there is something like that? So then I started like playing that with my imagination, which I've always been known to have a wild imagination. There's even times I'm a little girl in this family photos, and you just see me with a pen and paper versus having a doll in my hand.
Mm.
So I had the idea and I just kind of ran with it. And then I had the original story that is now today the next right thing.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's Thank you for sharing that spark of creativity. And I guess that even is a testament to how you want to know the why. Like you seem
Mhm.
to be very focused on the psychology and like why are they making these decisions? So for decisions, because it's a moral crime thriller, right? With probably many moral dilemmas that Rena comes across. Can you share an example of like a key moral choice that she has to make and how maybe it points to some of the themes in the book that you have?
Absolutely. So anyone that reads the back jacket of the story knows that Rena is the byproduct of an affair gone wrong. So
Mm.
she is already starting off kind of on the wrong foot, but she has worked very hard to be the perfect daughter, to make sure that everything is as perfect as can be. But as many of us know, in the real world, that's not really feasible. It's not really something you can actually achieve, because there's so many obstacles that can come your way. So one obstacle that she really comes to terms with is her relationship with her father and her mother, and
Mhm.
how, when you grow up, your parents are kind of those superheroes. They're kind of those people that, it's almost like they're inhuman in a sense. You don't
Mhm.
think that they could do anything wrong, or that they could do anything bad. And so for Rena to grow up in an environment where she already knew from the start that there was something already off about her story,
Mm.
it kind of tainted things a little bit for her. So it really kind of blended in and invited in more of that moral dilemma of, do you accept someone for their flaws, or do you write them off because of them?
Mm. And that's something that she struggles maybe throughout the whole book, and maybe
Oh,
that buds open a
absolutely.
little bit more. Okay.
And it really kind of like transitions, and also transcends into her relationship with other characters, as well as she meets them throughout the story.
Yeah.
And whether it is directly related to that or indirectly related, she really finds out that you can't just judge somebody based off what you see at face value. Sometimes you have to learn a bit more about them, walk a mile in their shoes, so to speak.
And that kind of sets her up because there's a gang that she has to deal with, right?
Yes, there
So
is.
obviously, those are like prime suspects of like people who look a certain way, who maybe act a certain way, but maybe there's another layer to it. So, does her dealings with having to face her parents' indiscretions help her dealing with this gang? And how did you balance kind of darker themes that perhaps come with gang related material and using that in the arc of her journey? Like, how did you balance, darker themes with her character growth?
That's an excellent question, Leah. So I will say, unfortunately, like personally, I do have matters in my own life where I've dealt with either severe loss in my own family or just matters where you kind of grow up quick when you go through events like that. But you learn that even though there are bad or heavy things that can happen in your life, it does not necessarily mean that you are on a trajectory towards something bad or something negative, so to speak, that you still have that
Mhm.
opportunity to rise above it, to be a better person in spite of it, not because of it. That
Mhm.
just because of, like, you don't have to be a byproduct of the circumstances of your life, no matter what they are. For
Yeah.
myself, it was the loss of my father when I was 10 years old.
Mm.
When it came to Rena's story, although I didn't want to write a story that was closely resembling my own, but I wanted to write one that really spoke to those levels of challenges that someone may face in their life, whether it's dealing with their parents that may resent them or may not resent them because of being a byproduct of an affair, which is
Mhm.
real in Rena's case, not mine. I came from a very loving family. But it was also fun to really play with those layers of the different variations of darkness that can live in someone's life, whether it's, you know, dealing with whether or not that their parents love them or respect them for who they are, or whether the gang that's after you is actually really fully bad, or if everyone involved is really as sinister as you may think, or if it's
Mm.
possible that someone involved wants a second chance and is looking for that opportunity, or
Okay.
is the person that's kind of heading that not really looking for that type of offer and that they're perfectly fine with the environment that they created for themselves. But it's to
Mhm.
open up kind of that umbrella of all these layers, all these different personalities, because even though a lot of people may want a second chance or may look for redemption in a sense, many people won't. Many people are very perfectly fine with where they found themselves in.
Mm. I Your title is very stirring. What does that phrase mean to you, the next right thing? And how does it kind of encapsulate your story's message?
That's a very good question. So for me as a writer, it's always the toughest part of the process to come down to the title of the story and the
Mm.
names for my characters.
Oh,
As
is it?
many of my close friends will tell you, I have driven them crazy with changing the names of characters and being like, oh, I've changed the name. Or what about this? Like, one day when I have kids, I swear I'm gonna, like, I'll just be relentless.
Oh, no. So I have like 4 in your roster and, you
I'll
can
just
only
have like a
cycle through
rotating
those.
list and just like, okay, how are we feeling today?
Yeah, yeah.
But when it came to not only deciding for Rena's name or Will's name or the other characters in the story, but especially for the title, I really wanted something that stood out, something that really felt like it was speaking to the core of the story, but not really giving away what was truly happening. I wanted
Yeah.
it to kind of have the ability to show all of those layers, but still be vague enough. So kind of
Mhm,
fit between that, kind of balance within that of, you know, being telling, but also not. So
mhm.
like, I remember a dear friend of mine, I confided in her the title for one of my new stories, and she was like, "It's a very provocative title," and I was like, "That's a very powerful term to use to really
Yeah.
describe the title." And I'm like, I guess it's kind of what I like to do in a sense when it comes to my titles. I want something that, whether it's a usual turn of phrase or something that really kind of makes you think, or that by
Mm,
the end of the story, you kind of see the title differently. It,
yeah.
it's always fun for me to talk to someone after they've read the story and I ask them, like, so what do you think about the title? What do you think about if that's changed for you? If that, like, is there's more light shown on that than it was before.
Hmm.
Mhm.
That's really fun. You must have a lot of fun with that.
Once
So
everything falls into place, absolutely. When I'm trying to figure it out, oh my goodness.
so I'm going to be one of those people. I'm going to get the book. That's the next book I'm getting of yours. And you can ask me that question once I'm
Will
done
do.
reading it. So let's go back to Rena. So
Yes.
you were saying that there's a hit and run, and Rena is obsessed with this young man that she believes is connected to her accident. So what drove you to make this obsession an essential part of her arc, and how do you think it shapes her choices?
That's a very good question. So it was never my intention to start out my stories with the characters being injured in some way, shape, or form, but I noticed there was a slight pattern to that. Not a spoiler. If anyone reads any of my other stories, you'll notice in the first chapter, sometimes bad
Okay.
things happen to the characters. I do not intentionally mean to harm my characters, but I love kind of starting the story off with a bang in a sense.
Yeah.
Not intended. But really to set the story off, because I've read so many stories throughout my life where you're reading the story and it's dragging on and you're kind of wondering by chapter 5, okay, is something going to
Mm,
happen? Like, where's the hook in a sense? Where's the inciting incident that's going to drag me in? Because
yeah.
for me, after the first chapter, if nothing's really happening, I'm looking for something else to read, essentially,
Yeah.
It's not so
Hmm.
much to, oh, well, like, life's too short, but, you kind of wonder, okay, maybe it's not the right story for me to read right now. Maybe it's a little bit slower paced, and that's all right. But for
Hmm.
me, when it comes to writing my stories, I like to just dive right in.
Yeah.
And it's a very good question as to why I thought of her being involved in the hit and run to really kick off the story. I don't know if there are many times that I was either on a road trip or I was watching an action movie and I was just seeing this moment kind of kick off, and I'm like, even if it was just in the middle of the movie or in the middle of the book, I thought that's a very good way to kind of like grasp the attention of the reader, to really drag them into it and make them understand, like, oh, we're not gonna ease into this. It's not gonna be a lukewarm for nobody. We're just gonna start right in and
Yeah.
we're just gonna go from there. And once I had the idea and once I started writing it, it just kicked off immediately. And I knew that that was the right point to really start the story, because not
Mm,
only was it compelling for a lot of readers, it was also compelling for me at the beginning stages of writing, that it was
yeah.
just like this, it just propelled me further into the story. Then before I knew it, I had the whole thing written down.
Hmm. That's yeah, that's a great way for sure to start off a book and to get the reader in, and I could see that for sure. Let's talk about Rena, because you said in the back in the synopsis of your book, it says that she learns to be brave, and by going through these things and making her choices. How do you how can you what how should I say this? What tips can you give people who are trying to become more brave through their choices, maybe going from someone who's avoidant and cautious to someone who's taking responsibility for their actions, and maybe feel free to use Rena as an example of that.
Well, Rena is definitely one of my favorite characters I've ever written, not only because she's the first character I've ever written, but also just because of her story itself and her bravery. It was even something that inspired me by the end of it, because that you get so caught up with your character stories that by the end of it, you're so proud of them. It's almost like watching a friend accomplish something so remarkable, and you're so
Mm,
proud of them and being there to kind of witness that moment.
yeah.
I don't want to spoil anything for the end, of course, but just
No.
kind of, we're just gonna say everything hopefully works out. I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
But when it comes to her story, now I will never give anyone bad advice. So if anyone feels that they're in a situation where they're like, I don't know if I should do that, if you're
Mm,
questioning yourself, have faith in that. If you're looking at a situation, you're saying, you know what, it's not really good for me right now. Trust that. Trust your gut no matter what. Even if, the stories tell you, the movies tell you, the songs tell you, your friends tell you that, oh, just dive in and figure it out. But if your gut's telling you not to do it, follow that, trust that, because that's going to lead you to where you need to go. In
Yeah.
Rena's case, she definitely gets into a situation where, although everyone in her life is essentially telling her the opposite, they're telling her to avoid the danger, to avoid this outlandish idea about, that there's more to her hit and run than there was, that it was just an accident, that no one's ever going to find who involved it, right? But
Mm-hmm.
she just feels that there's more to it than that. She can't let that go. Her gut's telling her to go and chase it. And that's really what propels her forward. And
Mm-hmm.
for Rena, she doesn't necessarily know what she's going to find herself in and what's going to involve. And although she's not unreasonable, she isn't. She knows that there's a very good chance that this might not be the smartest move, but she hopes that, again, you want to do the right thing. You want to make sure that if you're involving yourself in a potential dangerous situation, are you doing it because you want a good story to tell everyone later on, or are you doing it to make sure that no one else gets hurt? What is it that's driving you? What's your why?
Yeah.
So that's really
Yeah.
something that propels Rena and really inspires her to find that courage, even though throughout she's really struggling with that as well. To find out, okay, am I doing this just because I want a good story, or I want to, impress my parents so that they look at me differently, or so that I can prove everyone else wrong, or is it because I actually feel that there's something more to this? And sometimes you have to really look deep inside and find your why, and sometimes that will help you find the answer that you're looking for.
Yep, that's definitely a theme, and I think something that everyone needs to hear more often and understand. You need to understand why you're doing things, and that gives greater insight into who you are. And that's very specific to Rena because she's a budding journalist, right? So
Yes, she
that
is.
potential, like, oh, it might be a good story, really works for her and her character arc. So yeah, but no, definitely knowing your why is so key to understanding yourself and your decisions, and then even how you and your decisions affect other people. So I love that this is such a central theme of your book for sure. Another question I have is about this elusive gang member that you kind of you play at in the back. So without telling us too much, because of course we don't want to, no spoilers. This is a spoiler-free interview. How does this gang member kind of add to Rena's character, and like what tension underlies there?
There is definitely a lot of layers to this elusive gang member that really adds to Rena's story, because really, like, their first meeting, their second meeting, third meeting, there's so many different layers to their story as they kind of really have those opportunities to kind of be a bit more honest with each other about, like, okay, can I trust this person? And it's not even just Rena trusting this gang member, it's also this gang member being like, okay, well, can I trust you? Because looks can be deceiving. And you want to make sure if you're going to do something, you're going to do it right. But also, it's how far are you going to go for doing the right thing? And sometimes that can even apply to someone on the other side of it.
Yeah.
So it really blends that character of that moral dilemma for this elusive gang member, and how they get more involved with Rena's story and kind of what their own why is. So there's many layers to all these characters, whether they're doing something because it's the right thing by Rena, or are they doing something because they're inspired by someone else, that they want to protect someone else or do something right for somebody else, or that they saw something, some injustice, and they want to do right by it. But how are they going to go about that? Now, again, can't go into more details than that. Otherwise, we're just going to spoil the whole story. And I want people to just find these characters organically and just really fall in love with them as much as I have. But it's definitely those multiple layers for even just other characters that you wouldn't even anticipate, even the Rena's best friend, and how they get involved as well. So a lot of involvement, but also You have a lot of different character arcs happening all at the same time.
I'm sure. Well, I'm a huge lover of character driven stories, and you've definitely got me hooked. I want to know everything now about all these characters. So well done, you. Definitely. But next time I see you, I'm getting your book. So now you have to save me a copy.
Absolutely. And I promise I will try my hardest, because last time, unfortunately, I was not able to keep a copy for you, but
No,
promise I
that's
will try
okay.
my hardest.
That's okay. That's a good sign. It just shows that there's a hunger for a story like this that kind of delves into all those layers and those types of characters. Because you know what, it's also just a very realistic portrait of life. This is all what we have to deal with every single day, right? And so maybe reading your book and these characters can help inspire them in their own lives to make the right decisions for themselves and the people that they love. And so I think you've got a very special work. And I'm so excited to read it. So let's get into it a little bit more. What is the one main message that you want readers to take away from this?
Oh my goodness. I'll be honest with you, Leah. At one point, I thought I had an answer for this, and there was one day a couple of years ago where someone reached out to me on social media, and they sent me a screenshot of a page of a quote that they had highlighted,
Okay.
and it said something along the lines of, now I'm gonna have to paraphrase, but even though it's funny because I wrote this, but I'm gonna paraphrase, and it's about fighting for yourselves, even if you're no longer the person that you once were.
Hmm.
And when this person sent me the screenshot, I was so impressed by this quote until I looked at the page and I thought, my name's at the top of the page. That's actually my book. I was like, wow, okay. Obviously, I was paying attention.
Yeah, yeah.
But this person came from a whole other country, and they were reaching out because they wanted me to know that that quote really meant a lot to them. It was really something that reached out to them deeply. That they were so happy that they came across, and they wanted to reach out just to let me know. And
Wow.
I let them know that actually like meant the world to me, because here I thought this was just a simple collection of words, a story that at that point had only meant very much to me versus anybody
Mm,
else. And I really find that's the most beautiful thing about a story, is that you never know what chapter or what character arc or what development is really going to connect with somebody, but there will be those pieces that someone out in a different corner of the world will really have an impact on them.
yeah.
And I always hope that it's for the better. I hope that it's something that will encourage somebody or really help them find that courage, find that positivity, find those moments where they're able to really find that confidence, whether it's for themselves or for someone in their life. When it comes to the next right thing in Rena's story, whether it's as simple as doing the right thing, even though it's not always the easy thing, or about just having faith in your own self and your own capabilities, or
Hmm.
even just, surrounding yourself with people that help bring out the best version of yourself. It can be so many different things, and it can even be something that I haven't even thought of, just like
Yeah.
that moment. So it really comes down to what that person was looking for. If they're able to find it in my writing, then it means the absolute world to me. And
Mm,
because we all, like, you and I know this more than, or just, well, maybe not more than, but just as much as anybody, that a story or even a phrase or a quote can absolutely change everything. It can be
hmm.
a thing that inspires you, a thing that gives you that courage. So if we're able to do that and give that to somebody else, it's that beautiful kind of circle of life when it comes to writing and being a reader and having the, those stories kind of really leap off the page for me. Yeah.
Yeah. For sure. Well, we're all living our own story, right? And we're
Mhm.
constantly surrounded by stories. So to be able to write a story that impacts the stories of others, like that's just it's magical, really. Like it's amazing that that can happen. And we're all inspired by each other's stories, but to write a story that's fictional, that's still inspiring, and it's that just shows the testament of a well-written story that can even though it's fictional and imaginative, it can still touch an actual real story. And then you can kind of get into, well, what makes a story real? But we're not going to
Now
go
we're
too
kind of
deep
breaking the
into the
fourth wall
philosophy.
there.
It's just a thought that just jumped into my head. But it's a very interesting thought. So the one last question I had about the next right thing is, what was the hardest part, or what was either the hardest scene or the hardest part of the process of writing the story, other than, it sat on the shelf or in your head for 8 years?
Um, I really have to say that moment where I had that dear friend that brought up the suggestion of revisiting these characters, and
Mm-hmm.
the moment before I actually sat down and started writing it. Because although it was a great idea and I'm so glad that I did it, there was that period of time where, whether it was a day or a couple of hours, or even I think it might have been close to like a month, time was different at that time. Time felt very weird
Mm-hmm.
during the pandemic.
For sure.
But there was a moment where I really wondered, like, would it be worthwhile to revisit the story? Would it be worthwhile to revisit that dream of finishing a book? Could I even do it? Is it
Mm-hmm.
really worth it? Would it even amount to anything? And there was so many what ifs and so many, oh, well, maybe you shouldn't, or so many reasons why it wasn't that good of an idea. Like I was busy with work and I had family and everything else. But I thought, again, it was, if I don't do this now, I never will. And
Mm.
I thought back to that 16-year-old girl who had this dream of wanting to be a writer, and how she, although because, being a teenager and thinking that the adults in your life are really want to encourage you and guide you, I was that teenager. I thought, oh, well, why would they lead me astray? But then, you kind of give up on your dreams as you grow up. And I thought, what if I just, for myself, or even just for that 16-year-old girl,
Mm.
revisit this, even if for no other reason than just to have a finished manuscript that I just put in a drawer. At that point, I wasn't even thinking about publishing it. It was not even occurring to me about the possibility of this being out in the world.
Mm.
And I thought, worst case, I finish it, I just put it in a drawer, and it's something that I take out every couple of years and just be something that I accomplished, something that I actually finished. And before long, it just became this bigger and bigger thing. And I had an author friend at the time as well who told me, you have to tell people that you're writing this, you have to hold yourself accountable to this.
Mm.
And it just piled on more and more. It was kind of a, close your eyes and jump scenario that I was kind of going through.
Okay. Yeah.
And I had the manuscript, and then I was like, okay, instead of asking myself, what if, I was brave enough to ask, what's next?
Wow.
Yeah.
What a big difference. And let this be a lesson to all of us that our words have power.
Mhm.
I'm sorry that you had to, go through that of being told you couldn't do something, just shows a shift in mindset, how extremely powerful that is, and how our words can affect people and their mindsets and the possible path that they can take. But, you had people around you who loved you and believed in you, and that's a blessing, and a
Mhm.
tremendous blessing. So what's next? What's next?
That's the
Because
question.
now the next right thing, is this a standalone? Is this going to be turned into a series? What's next, Celine? No what ifs.
That is another very good question. You're really good at those.
Well, thanks.
So when it came to the next right thing, I always wrote it as a standalone. Granted, whenever anyone has finished it, they've reached out and asked, so hypothetically, if you were to write a sequel, what would that look like? And
Ah,
what I love about being an indie author is that we have such freedom to just revisit a story, to write a novella, to write a sequel, or an impromptu, flashback into these characters' lives.
yeah.
And so we have so much freedom with that, but also I find a responsibility to it as well, because sometimes the story is done. The
Mhm.
characters came when they needed to, and they played the role in your life that they meant to, and that was it. And sometimes that's all for now. Sometimes, I don't know, stay tuned. You never know. Again, I was that kid with a wild imagination. So to say that I haven't thought of a sequel would be a lie.
Okay.
Um, am I in the works of one right now? No. Am I in the
Okay.
works of like 17 other things? Yes. So we'll see what comes up first.
I love that. But you do have your The Uncaged Curse
Yes.
series, right? Is that the series name?
Yes, the Cage Girl series.
Sorry, the Caged Curse series. So yeah, everyone, you can look that up, and that is a YA. I bought it. I have yet to still read it. And now that I'm in the process of packing, I'm in the process of moving. I'm moving this Saturday to my new house. But I have like packed all the books from indie authors that I've gotten in like a special box. I'll easily find it.
Perfect. 'Cause
And your book is in
anything when
there.
it comes to moving, it's as hectic as can be. So I hope everything goes well. Fingers crossed.
Oh. Well, actually, it has been pretty good and no stress so far, so that's good. So yeah, so you have the Cage Curse series, and you have an upcoming release,
I
right?
do when it comes to a hockey mystery. So I know
Yeah.
that the world is so in love with hockey romances, and don't get me wrong, it's on my bookshelf as well. Maybe not this physical one, but definitely on my Kindle. So I'm definitely a fan of those as well. But also because I grew up around hockey players, I always knew that there was more to their story as well. Again, we're getting into those layers too,
Yeah, yeah,
and
I love it.
always asking that what if, like what more is there to a hockey player's story? And for me as a mystery writer, I always like asking those questions about even, kind of playing into my master's degree in criminology and kind of delving
Mm,
into those darker themes and what could be there for these characters. That it's not all fame and fortune and bright lights, and that
mm.
there could be more to it than that. And that became what will soon be Power Over Me, which it will be my next book that will be released. When, we're not too sure yet, but very, very
Okay,
soon.
very soon. So basically, just stay tuned.
Yeah,
You want to let everyone know what your socials are, where they can reach you.
absolutely. So definitely follow me on Instagram. That is the platform that I am on the most. So if you want to reach out, let me know if you read the book. If you have any questions, by all means, feel free to reach out. I always love to hear from everybody at Celine Perron Writer. There's also my website, celineperron.com, which I am so happy that I own the domain of, because you'd be
Oh,
surprised how many other
wonderful.
people own that as well. And yes, I also have a Facebook account as well, Celine Perron Writer. So that's a Facebook page. And I have tried to also have a YouTube channel, but I mostly use it to share trailers for my books. So if you want to watch the trailers, they're all there as well under Celine Perron. But all the links can definitely be found on my website or off Instagram. So it's very easy for everybody.
Okay, and we will when I re-upload this as its own separate video that's not live, I'll be putting up all those links there too, so everyone can reach you there. Quick question about your YouTube channel. I feel like I kind of knew that. Your trailers, did you also shoot them yourself, or
Uh,
did you use footage, or what do we call that? Anyways, yeah,
I guess like we'd call that either stock images
there you
or
go, stock footage. That's what I'm thinking.
so um definitely stock footage for a lot of some of the scenes
Yeah.
because unfortunately you can't just have somebody take a weapon and go walk in the streets. That could be alarming for a lot of people. So we try not to do that. Um, but
Unless
there
you do it
is
late at night and you just call the cops and you're like, just to let you know, this is
this is gonna
happening.
sound strange, but I promise I'm okay. We're okay.
Yes.
It's just for a book. I feel like one day the cops will likely get a call for something. But again, we're all friendly here. We're all just here
Yes,
to make sure that we create beautiful content for the books. Um,
exactly.
in terms of anything else that I've actually done footage wise, there is a fun video watching me and my cousin under the behind the scenes of the photo shoot for the Cage Curse cover. If you'd
Oh,
like to go and watch.
fun.
I am not great at editing videos, so just know that going in, and you'll be fine. Otherwise,
Okay.
I tried my best, but it was a
There
lot
we
of
go.
fun.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'll also I'll tag you. I'll tag your channel so they can also see that too. Thank you so much, Celine, for coming on. Thank you for sharing. Well, just you're so well spoken. Thank you for sharing your insight about your characters in your books, and sharing. You can, we obviously see the passion that you have for your stories, and just for the general insight you provided about your reasons why and the messages that you want to impart to your readers. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Leah. That means so much. And thank you again for just the time to be on your YouTube live channel. And it's been so much fun. Always a pleasure speaking with you. And
Yeah,
I am so glad that we're able to share more of Rena's story. And I'm so glad that's been a lot more enticing to kind of get more of those the behind the scenes features of it.
for sure. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Alana, for having been with us. This is so sweet of you. Love, love, love. I'm feeling all this too. You got to get the book if you have not yet. And I will put also a link down below in the re-upload to also to Amazon where they can get your book. So, all right, we're going to say goodbye to everyone. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Good night. Thank you so much.